We're talking about folds and twists today. So some recommended props are 2 blocks and a pillow or bolster or blanket rolled up might be helpful. Why are we talking about folds and twists? Well, first of all, crow is in a folded position. If you are able to get your knees into your chest closer and more compact, the easier the crow will be. So being able to fold is going to help a lot. Why twists? A lot of people today sit at a desk for a majority of their day for their job. I personally do. Or you come home and you're tired from your job, whether it be an office job or a more physical job, and you sit on the couch for hours and hours. Whatever the circumstances may be, a lot of people have a lot of tightness in their low back. So twists will help to relieve some of those big muscles in your low back, which will just help overall, not just crow, but to feel good in general and feel like you want to move. So let's get started. Go ahead and take a wide-legged position, something that's comfortable. You don't have to be at your absolute limit. And take the opportunity to remove the flesh from underneath of you, which may make you feel a little bit more comfortable. If you're feeling really tight here, you can go ahead and put a block under your bottom, and that will relieve some of the pressure on the back of your legs. The goal here is not for ultimate sensation in your legs, but to feel comfortable and relaxed. So I'll go ahead and sit on the block and model that. From here, I'm going to move the flesh from outside of my sit bones. And with a nice tall back, flat back, go ahead and lean forward on an exhale. You can take another block and support yourself, or if you're close enough to the ground, you can use your hands. Again, we're not going for ultimate sensation here. What we are going for is a nice flat back. It does not have to be the deepest. It does not have to be a pancake. We're just moving a little bit forward. If it feels good to move back and forth, that can be really helpful, but we want that movement not to come from the upper back, but from the hips. So we want our hip bones, if we're thinking about them as pointing forward in this position, we want them to point downwards. We can do this while spinning our inner thighs up towards the ceiling. That will give us a nice little stretch through our groin, and again, through our back. Our hips and our back are really closely related physically, right? There's not a lot of space in between them. And then also in the way that we move, if our back is tight, that's going to keep things tight in our hips. I'm going to go ahead and move this out because I'm feeling a little bit looser. And that may happen for you too, where you do a little bit of movement and you feel like you can get a little deeper. Maybe it feels good to be static. Maybe it feels good to rest, take your block or your bolster, and get deep. Stay there for as long as you like, and then we'll start to get those twisting movements in. So first, same side hand as foot. You're just going to reach for your foot. You don't have to touch your foot. If you're here, that's totally fine. It's the movement that we're going for. You can also take a strap to get a nice long back. And we're not, again, going for the ultimate depth here. We're just making some movements. Getting everything nice and lubricated up. As you're doing this, make sure that your sit bones are staying on the floor. So if you're reaching, I don't know if you can see that, but if you're coming up off of the floor, you're not going to get as much benefit. So, same side, go back and forth until you get a little deeper. Starting to feel a little lubrication, a little bit of warmth. And then maybe you want to pause, take an inhale, grow nice and long through your spine. And then on the exhale, try the opposite hand to opposite foot, or to ankle, or knee, or whatever feels good. But again, keep those sit bones on the ground. And we're just moving here. You may feel like a lot of stretch as you lean in your lats, which are going the big muscles in your back. And that's Really gonna help to get everything moving and flowing. Pause, inhale, and this time we're gonna use our core to move us instead of just leaning. So nice and tall. Inhale up, and using just your core, exhale, and turn your torso towards your knee. Doesn't have to be the deepest movement, but it does benefit you more if you move your core. Now maybe you want to lean forward on an exhale. Inhale, come up. Using that core nice and tight. Exhale, lean forward. Inhale, come up. And this movement doesn't have to be dramatic. Maybe you found a good spot right here and you'd like to just kind of pulse here. Maybe it feels better to lean in, but I find, let's go ahead and switch to the other side. Tight core, exhale, lean forward. I find early in practice that movement feels a lot better than being static. Like I said, maybe you want to pulse right here, find a good spot and rest. Get equal-ish. Both sides are probably going to be a little different. I know that they are for me, and that's okay. We're just getting in some movement. Maybe back and forth with your shoulders, leaning forward, getting a little deeper and towards the center. Walk it out. This is opening legs again and helping with hips and back. Another movement we're going to go for here. So take your same side, hand and leg, and get your elbow against the inside of your leg or knee and use it to spin and rotate your chest open towards the ceiling or sky. Lift up the opposite side hand and reach over your head. Maybe this feels really good right here. Trying to keep a nice long spine. You can do that by digging in and pulling with that bottom arm that has the connection with the leg. Maybe it feels good to sink in. And you can use your hand as a little bit of a self-assist to help rotate your chest up. Now that should feel like a big stretch along the upper side. So you can use your core muscles to kind of cinch in that bottom side and make it feel like it's pulling in like an accordion. And when you inhale, try to really inflate that whole side that's on the upper facing the ceiling. As you get a little deeper, you could snuggle in more towards the ground. Open your chest more. And on an inhale, come up. Nice tall spine using your core. Or repeat on the other side. So same side, elbow digs into that thigh. Inhale your upper arm up towards the ceiling. And maybe over, reaching towards your foot. For me, this side is a little tighter, so it's more of a struggle to reach my foot. If you find that your hips are coming up off of the ground, you can use a strap around your foot to extend that grip. But really we want to be working on cinching the bottom side waist and breathing into the top side. All of those big back muscles that are tight. This will help us to get deeper into our folds, have a little more space in our hips. And breathe. On your next inhale, come up. Feel free to repeat any of this as much as you'd like, hang out, whatever feels good. But hopefully you're feeling a little bit more open now. So we're going to take it up into standing. And I've created some warmth, so I'm going to go ahead and take off my sweatshirt. We're going to start with a wide-legged forward fold. So if you're fancy, you might start at the top of your mat and step out. Whatever's comfortable for your feet. Mine are parallel-ish. If you want your blocks, you can line them up here. You want them to be with your hips in line with your ankles. Get a little movement there. And then nice flat back, and shoulders are going to be over wrists. So play with your block placement until it feels comfortable. We're really going for comfortable here. Now if you just want to give a little shake, move, give the wall or the neighbors out the window a little show. little bit of movement here. Try to engage your quads. You can keep your knees bent if that feels good. You don't want to overextend or hyperextend, but you do want to keep a nice engagement. Inhale, and maybe pull a little bit with those blocks so that the fronts come off. This is an exaggeration, but pull forward so you get a nice long spine and keep your legs engaged. And then on your exhale, you can bend your elbows back towards the back of the mat, keeping support in the blocks so that you feel really in control here. And again, we're focusing that movement from our hips. So remember our hips that are pointed forward, you want to make sure they're here and then pointing down more. Rounding of your back is a great thing to do for a stretch. That's not what we're focusing on here. We're focusing on the hips. So inhale, think length and engagement. Exhale and support as you bend and relax and find a little more depth. Inhale, think length. Exhale slowly. Try to point those sit bones towards the sky and your hip bones towards the ground. Inhale and come up, think length. Exhale and fold down. Nice and relaxed and in control so that your nervous system knows that it can get itself in and out of this position and it doesn't have to worry and seize up. Do this with your own breath here, whatever feels good for you. I'm obviously doing a lot of talking, so my inhales and exhales are a little off from probably what you're doing. Keep those legs engaged. For me, I'm feeling pressure through my hands, but I'm also trying to keep my legs really nice and active and strong here. Do that for as many times as you'd like. Then spin your heels in and your toes out. Bend your knees down until you start to grow light in your hands. And come up into goddess or horse pose. You can use your hands to rest on your knees and move a little bit side to side. What always feels really good to me is tipping a shoulder in. Again, with those big muscles in the back, it really helps me to feel a nice stretch and release there. So maybe even bending in. Sometimes when I do this, I'll even get a pop in my low back. So maybe work a little bit more strength. Keep sending the knees out over the toes. Don't let them collapse in. Do a little bounce here, and you're welcome to take some of the pressure off by supporting yourself with your hands. And breathe. This should feel good and relaxing, even though we're working hard. Come up, using the strength of your legs, core nice and tight, think length along the spine. And we're going to point our legs, both feet forward, as if we're on train tracks. So there should be some space in between the feet, not in a line. And that's because we're really trying to focus on our hips here and take a little bit of the challenge of the balance out of the equation. So you'll also probably want your blocks. I know I personally do. So you can use a bend in your knee to get them on either side of your front leg and adjust to whatever feels good for you. We're gonna go for hips forward. So that will mean my right leg is forward. So drawing the right hip back and pushing the left hip forward. You can put your hands on your hips. Again, picture that they're headlights, like you're driving a car. And you don't want to be driving off the mat, right? You want to be driving forward. So take a bend in your knee if you need to get to your blocks and adjust so that you can have a nice, long, flat back. Maybe some of you are bent really, really down and you can grab that leg with a nice flat back and straight legs. Personally, I'm a little bit higher up here, and that's okay. Re-square your hips, breathe, Think engagement through your thigh and length through your spine. Again, you can kind of drag those blocks back. Breathe. Now we're going to add in a little bit of a strength challenge. So get your hands nice and stable here. And you're going to think about squeezing your quad and lifting up your front leg by pushing down into those blocks. If this doesn't feel stable and steady enough for you, then go ahead and skip it. But it is a fun challenge and it really helps to work that quad and hip flexors. So if you're gonna go for it, again, doesn't matter if you get off the ground, just give it a try if you'd like. So without further ado, 1, 2, 3, lift. Hold and lower. Ready? 1, 2, 3, lift and lower. We're gonna go again. 1, 2, 3, lift. This is the last one, make it count. And lower. Now, see if that gets you any deeper into your fold with a nice flat back. Maybe it's just a feeling of being deeper, a little bit of freedom. Bend your knee. Maybe take a step back, adjust yourself so that you can get down on the ground. Use your hands to push yourself up if you need to, and come into a low lunge. From here, we're going to put a lot of weight in that forward foot as we take our hands to our hips to make sure that we are driving towards the front of the mat, and move not to the deepest range that you ever have, but again, we're working on lubricating those hips. So really put a lot of weight into that front leg. For me, I'm already starting to feel the shakes. And set yourself back up, tuck your back toes, come up, and step all the way to the front of the mat. Let's go ahead and repeat that on the other side. So, for me, I'm gonna step back my right foot. I'm gonna find a good length. I'm gonna come up so I can settle down from the strength of my legs from the ground up. So I'm on railroad tracks here, meaning I have space in between my feet so that the balance is a little bit easier. Hands on my hips, pointing forward with my headlights. And I'm gonna lean forward, drawing my left hip back, my front foot hip back, and pulling my back hip forward and really engaging that front leg. Reach, 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 reach. And at the last moment, sprinkle your hands down and find those blocks, making sure that you have engagement through those legs the whole time. Every inhale will get you a little bit of length through your spine. Exhale, you can go ahead and lower down if you have the space. Inhale, you might come up. Exhale, fold in. And again, this doesn't have to be a big movement. Maybe you don't like movement and maybe you prefer to just hang out. Whatever feels good for you. Feel free to take as long as you'd like here. We're gonna go ahead and go for the challenge on this second leg. So don't even think about it, don't hesitate. This is the harder leg for me, so I'm here with you. 1, 2, 3, lift. And lower. 1, 2, 3, lift. And lower. Enjoy the struggle. 1, 2, 3, lift. And lower. Go ahead and bend into that knee. Come down with the back knee. Pick yourself up. And we're gonna, again, lubricate our hips, moving back and forth, putting a lot of weight into that front foot, using it to support ourselves. When you're ready, tuck your back toes, come up, and step forward. From here, I'm going to move my blocks out of the way. Take my feet about hips width, or maybe even a little wider, whatever feels good for you. You can have your blocks, if that feels good, in a forward fold, or you can put a bend in your knees if you need to. And now we're going to do a nice forward fold ragdoll. So I'm keeping a nice bend in my knees because that feels good. A little bit of movement. You might want to do a sway. Take a moment to relax and breathe after doing some work. And when you're ready, set your hands down and take a step back into your plank pose, and then push back into downward facing dog. Go ahead and start pedaling your feet. So many of us think of downward facing dog as a resting pose, and while that's true, there's a lot of work that can be done here. So create lots of push, work towards engaging your quads, feel like you're squeezing a block between your forearms and your legs. Spin your sit bones up towards the sky, hollow out your belly. Go ahead and take one little baby step forward. And we're going to build some heat in our downward facing dog by doing some twists and tap. So let your right hand grow light and reach back through towards your left ankle. You can spin your face up under your armpit to look up at the ceiling or sky. And go ahead and set it back down. Let your left hand grow light and reach it across, grabbing opposite ankle. Spin your face up, peek under that armpit, and set it down. Now we'll do that at a little bit faster pace to build some heat. So, starting with our right hand, tap, return, tap left, return, tap right, return, tap left, right, left, right, left, right, left. Last round, right, left. Come back to center. Step your downward facing dog out to its regular length and push back. See if you find any more space now than you had a moment ago. Roll forward into your plank pose and go ahead and set your knees down. You can keep your toes tucked, I like them untucked, and push back into child's pose. Remember, child's pose is one of the places where we have options. So we can have work on getting our belly towards our thighs. Maybe you're already there. You can have your arms forward. You can have your arms back. You can rest your forehead down. You can have knees wide and ankles wide. But all of this work has been coming towards this pose. Maybe a little shimmy here. That feels good. Spend as much time as you'd like here. If you want to continue in the folded positions, feel free to take a happy baby pose, working on keeping your spine flat against the mat. And if you're ready, we can go ahead and start working on our crow. For today's crow pose challenge, we have a toe tap challenge. Since we've been working on our folds, you should be a little deeper than you were. You can set up your blocks at whatever height you like. So maybe that's really high. Maybe you're folding, you're really rounded if you try to get down onto the ground. So try to keep a nice flat back here and put yourself at whatever level feels good. So from here, we're going to just first think about lifting our hip up and kind of suctioning that hip bone up into the socket. So I'm starting with my left. Just lift it up. Try to keep some hollowness in your core and in your pelvis. Lift up the right. Lift left. Lift right. And now you've got like a little march going. So keep lift, 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 lift. Pause when you come to an even number. And now you're going to tap the block after you lift. So lift and then give it a little kick. Lift, give it a little kick. Lift, kick, lift, kick. Tap, 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 tap. Maybe you try it, without the blocks. Tap your little wrists. One side of that for me is really, really hard. Now, how does this translate into crow pose? Well, we can do a little tappy tap and keep our feet on the ground, but increase that challenge. So you want to keep all of the same things that you do with crow. You want your hands to be wide and taking lots of weight. You want to make sure that you're keeping your elbows, forearms going up. You can keep as much contact with your shin to your forearm as you would like, or tricep rather. Make sure that you're pushing up through your back and not collapsing down into it. You want to be looking forward and not down. And tap, tap, tap. Now you can do this floating too, if that feels good for an extra challenge. That will really help with your compression and your lift. So I hope that you enjoyed this twisting and folding session and that it helps you on your crow journey.